Hello everyone, good morning. Welcome to this Kubernetes session. So till now we have seen the things about the pod, deployment, replica set, services, and yesterday we have seen secrets and the config map. Okay. Now we will see about the namespace. Okay, what exactly is the namespace and why do we need it? Why that is one object provided by the Kubernetes. Okay, so before showing you anything, if I go to this terminal where I have set up my Kubernetes kubeconfig file, let's see which all objects I have over here. Let me delete pod p1. I think this week have created yesterday, yeah, 23. And now if I do kubectl get pod, I can see no resource found in the default namespace. Okay, so why we are getting this message and from where we are getting this message? And what exactly is the namespace, what exactly is the default? Let's understand that. Okay, now before going into the details of namespace, let me tell you one drawback of this Kubernetes, or you can say not drawback, I can say a bad way of creating the deployment. Let's consider this is my Kubernetes cluster, and within this Kubernetes cluster, let's say I have created one deployment. Let's say there are two teams. One is, let's say, uh, development one team, and another is, let's say, development two team. Okay, so both are working on the cluster and they have full access to this cluster. And this is the Kubernetes cluster, and this is created my dep. Let's say it is a kind of deployment. This is my dep is the name of the deployment they have created. Who have created? Let's say a person from development one team. I'll just say day one. Okay, so let's say development one have deployed this and it's working fine. I mean, there is no issue over here. They are able to access this application via node port service or via load balancer. So everything is okay. Now development two team comes into the picture and they also create the deployment. Let's say within this deployment they make use of the image as custom image colon v1. Let's say this is the image they use to create the container within the pod. Now development 2 team comes into the picture and they also creates the deployment with the same name. Okay, and if they use the image as custom image colon v2, in that case what is going to happen, as we have seen till now, if you will keep the deployment name same, means you will not change the deployment name, and let's say if you change the name of the image only and apply that file, in that case a upgrade will happen. So let's say a development one team have created a deployment with the name as mydep, and within that they are using this image custom image colon v1. So everything is fine over here. Let's say development 2 comes into the picture and they also created a they want to create a deployment. Okay, let's say name of the deployment they want to provide as mydep, and image they want to create it from is, let's say, custom image colon v2. Okay, so in that case a new deployment will not get created because this development already exists, okay, within this cluster. So what is going to happen, a new replica set will get created, and within new replica set new pods with provided image like v2 image will get created, and previous replica set के जो भी v1 के pods चल रहे थे that will go to zero or that will be deleted. So that is going to happen over here because I am keeping the same deployment name. Let me show you it practically, then you will understand it one more time. We have already seen the deployment topic, but let's recap it a little bit. Let's say we don't have any deployment as of now. Deployment is like a deploy is a shortcut for the deployment. So let's change the file name. Okay, so over here I'll say reply replica equal to 2, so that 2 pods will get created from this deployment with the name as mydep, and this will get created from this demo image v1. Let's apply it. After applying it, the deployment will get created successfully, and within the deployment pod will get created. Okay, let's check. Let's check the output again. So over here you can see a deployment got created. Internally deployment will create a replica set, and within that replica set pod will get created. Now if I keep the deployment name same, okay, and just change the version v1 to v2, so I'm just changing so let's say the previous deployment was done by the development one team, and this change is, let's say, done by the second team, and if the second team have applied the deployment, okay, so what is going to happen over here, that the previous replica set will have 0. Okay, you can see uh, this is the previous replica set because it is 1 minute before. This is the new replica set. From the age only you will see, if the age is very less, it means it is the latest one. If it's older, it means it is the previous one. So in the previous replica set, it means we don't have any pod with version v1 image. Now the pods are running uh, from the version v2 image. If you can see, kubectl describe. If you want to check which image this pod is having, let's describe it, and you will get to see the image name over here, that this pod got created from v2. It's no longer v1. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to explain over here, that if the development 2, let's say development 2 team is not aware that a mydep deployment is already exist, and they create a deployment with this, so in that case the previous team's deployment will vanish and the new team deployment will be there. So that's where it will impact development one team, that now they no longer able to access their application because it got overwritten by the development 2. So that is the problem statement I can see right now over here, and because of that only namespace part will come into the picture. Okay, so namespace is nothing but you can say a virtual cluster within the Kubernetes cluster. Okay, so how namespace is going to resolve the things? Okay, so let's say I have created two namespace. Let's say I'll provide this as dev1 ns. Ns is a shortcut for the namespace, and let's say dev2 ns. Okay, so now you know, like I cannot create a mydep. Let's say if there is mydep deployment, I cannot create one more deployment with the same name. Same goes for the pod as well. Let's say if there is a pod already running, and if I try to create one more pod with the same name, okay, then I won't be able to create it. So now p1 already exists over here. If I try to create p1 one more time, then you will see pod p1 already exists. Okay, in the same way, like if you created a deployment with mydep, then one more deployment of the same name is not possible. Okay, but let's say development 2 team want to create a deployment with the same name, means they don't want to change the deployment name. Even the development 1 team also don't want to change the deployment name. Okay, so they stick to their terms. So how we can provide the solution to them? In that case, we can create two different namespace. Okay, it's a kind of virtualization. You will not be able to see it physically, but definitely it will exist. Means we can go ahead and create a namespace within this Kubernetes cluster. Okay, so this is kind of a virtual cluster within the Kubernetes cluster. So as a DevOps engineer, I will create two. One is with a dev1 namespace, second is with dev2 namespace, and I will ask development one team to create their deployment in this namespace, and I will ask development 2 team to create their deployment in this namespace. So if they create now a new deployment with the same name, it's possible now within the cluster. Okay, right now you were not able to create a similar kind of similar means deployment with the same name twice, but if you make use of the namespace, it is possible. So this is the one solution to that, and there are other benefits of making use of the namespace as well. Okay, second benefit, okay, let's say one is like one benefit is a duplicate object name. It's possible over here. Now second is, let's say this let's say we have this Kubernetes cluster, and within that Kubernetes cluster, let's say there is only one worker node, and that worker node is having resource as, let's say, 2 CP 2 CPU. Okay, and let's say there is no namespace now, and if you don't have any namespace, then the development team have created a mydev deployment, and let's say their pod consume entirely 2 CPU over here. Okay, so if development team have consumed all the CPU which was available, in that case definitely development 2 will not be able to create any pod because there will be no resource left. So the resource management part is also not properly handled without namespace. So what I will do to uh, give a proper solution, that I will allocate one CPU to this namespace, one CPU to this namespace. Means the pod within this namespace will not be able to go beyond one CPU usage. Similarly, pod within this second namespace will not be able to go beyond this one CPU utilization. So that's how I have distributed my resources between two teams, and now they like both the team can work independently. Now they will not be able to say like there is resource crunch because of the other team. So they won't be able to say this statement just because as a DevOps engineer we have allocated resources to this namespace separately. Okay, so second is like resource management. Is the solution, is the benefit you can consider. Third is like as a DevOps engineer, if I want within this namespace, there should be maximum 5 pods to be created. Okay, let's say I want to put some restrictions over this namespace, that max 5 pods allowed, and same goes for this as well, over here as well. So at any point in time, if the total number of pods in the first namespace tries to go beyond 6, sorry, tries to go beyond 5, then it will not be possible over here. So the namespace is all about restrictions. Okay, namespace is all about management. It's not restrictions, you can consider management. For better management of the cluster, uh, we can, like, we have to make use of this namespace. Okay, let's say resource limitations. And the best benefit of making use of the namespace is like access. Let's say day one team have access to, let's say, entire cluster. So day one team have access to this namespace as well, day two, and for the second namespace as well. So what if this day one team have updated the deployment of other application by mistake? Or let's say if this day one team have deleted this deployment in this second namespace by mistake, so still there will be an issue, because uh, then dev 2 team will not be able to access this application because this got deleted. So this should not be possible. Okay, what my requirement is like, dev 1 team should make any changes in the objects of dev 1 namespace. Dev 2 team should do modification or creation or anything in the dev 2 namespace only. If they go and want to change anything in another namespace, they should get access denied. Okay, so that is a kind of access level we can manage with the help of this namespace. So you can say access restriction of access namespace, because I don't want development one team to modify object of development 2 and vice versa. So we have to restrict the access, so that if development one team by mistake as well want to delete this, still they should not be able to do that. uh, I mean to say, they should not be able to execute that command, because they should not have access to the second namespace. So these all are the benefits of making use of the namespace. Understood it, at least in layman language? So let's see in practically, like whatever things that we are uh, whatever statements that we are doing over here, that remains valid or not. Let's do it practical. Okay, so for that matter, let's delete everything first and let's start from scratch. So let's delete a deployment. Let's delete this deployment. So this deployment will delete the replica set and the pod. Along with that, I have this pod which was manually created. Let's delete this as well. So I should not have anything. Okay, so this is the default service. So let's ignore it. Kubectl get namespace. These are the default namespace whenever you are going to create a Kubernetes cluster that you will get. Shortcut is ns. Output will be the same. Okay, you type namespace or you type ns, you will get the same output. So I will make use of the ns always as a shortcut for the namespace. So right now, anything that you are going to create, any object like pod, deployment, anything, if you don't mention in which namespace it should go, always it will be the default namespace. Let's see if I create a pod and if I just describe it, and at the top you will see namespace equal to default over here. So always means, as even though there are 4 namespace over here, but uh, the default namespace Kubernetes use to create the objects. Others namespace are I can say system related namespace. We should not do anything within that. And in the architecture level, I talked about few resource or few I mean to say components like API server, if you remember, then controller, then scheduler, etcd, kubelet, then runtime engine, and kubeproxy, and many others we talked about. These are components. So all those components are available as a pod in this namespace. If you do kubectl get pod, by default it is going to get a list of pod from the default namespace. But if I want to go ahead and get the pods in this namespace, then I just have to type -n. Let's provide the namespace name, and I will get to see all the pods in this namespace. Because the way I have explained you over here, if you want to go ahead and check the things in dev1 namespace, then you have to do kubectl get pod -n dev1 namespace. Likewise, same goes for the dev2 as well. So -n and namespace name is nothing but we want to run this command on the resources which are present within this namespace. So you will be able to see now over here core DNS, this, some proxy related get, just a moment. Kubernetes metrics server, CSI pods are there, core DNS pods are there. The metrics server that we have created that day is available over here. Okay, so I'll just check where exactly this API server and controller. But if you, because I worked mainly on the AWS Kubernetes cluster, so within that, uh, all those pods will be present uh, within the kube system namespace. So maybe when we will be learning AWS, that time I will just create a Kubernetes cluster for time being, just to show you some demo. Okay, but this kube system namespace is for the internal working of the Kubernetes, and all the components of the Kubernetes resides within this namespace, and we don't have to change anything in this namespace. Okay, we have to create our custom namespace. So how to create it? Kubectl create namespace. Let's say dev1 namespace. So we just have created one namespace for us. Okay, now in the default namespace we already have p1 running, so I cannot go ahead and create a pod p1. Okay, if I try to do that, it is not possible. But what if I try to go ahead and create the same object in another namespace? That is definitely possible, because within this namespace nothing was there. So we have created pod p1 in this namespace. Okay, so it is possible to create objects with the same name, but the thing is it should be in a different namespace, not in the same namespace. Within one namespace, like it's not possible. Okay, someone tried to join, or so that's where you can see kubectl get pod. Always if I don't specify anything after this, it will be the default namespace. But if I want to check for another namespace, then you have to specify it for which namespace you want to check. Okay, so p1 exists in the default namespace as well, and this p1 exists in the dev1 namespace as well. Let's describe it. Describe pod p1 that is present within this namespace. In the namespace you will see that this pod belongs to dev1 namespace. Okay, so this is how you can create a namespace. You can create an object in the namespace, And let's say if I delete everything, delete pod p1. If I say delete pod p1, it is going to delete it from the default namespace. Similarly, I'm going to delete pod p1 from my dev1 namespace as well. Okay, so how about creating a pod directly in the dev1 namespace via pod.yaml? Okay, so till now, let's say if you don't define anything over here, okay, and create a pod directly, then that will be created under the default namespace. But if I want that it should be created under the some different namespace, under the metadata section, metadata is all about the information. So under the metadata section, just provide the name of the namespace that you want to create, means that in which you want a pod to be get created. Okay, so let's apply it, and pod will get created under the dev1 namespace. Okay, even though it's an error image full, because that is a private image, so that's where I'm getting this, but that's not a problem over here. Main thing is like I can see a pod is getting created under this dev1 namespace by just adding this namespace section. Okay, otherwise it would have been created under the default namespace. Clear this part as of now. Now let's see some more usage of this namespace. Okay, now we have this dev1 namespace. Let's describe it. If you describe this custom namespace that we just created, as of now there is no resource quota available and no limit range. So this resource quota is also one of the object, limit range is also one of the object. Okay, why we need to assign resource quota over here? Okay, because the way I have mentioned that I'm going to assign one CPU to this namespace, so that will be assigned via this resource quota. Okay, so by default a resource quota will not get created along with the namespace, but this resource quota is all about providing resources to the namespace. Let's say if you don't provide any resource quota, then the pod within this namespace will be able to consume as much as possible which is available on this worker node. Okay, and I don't want that to happen, that a single pod should consume entire CPU from that worker node and there should nothing be left for the other pods. That should not be the case. Each and every team should get a fair amount of the resources. Okay, so the resource quota which is mentioned over here is mainly for allocating the resources. So when you allocate resource 1 CPU, then pods within that the pods within that resource quota within that namespace won't be go beyond the 1 CPU. Limit range is mainly for like uh, as I have specified, maximum 5 pods are allowed. So no, not that limit range, but let's first talk about resource quota. Let's create it and see how it works in reality. Okay, so any pod is there in this one, and let's clear our namespace, and then sorry, not this, then let's go to the resource quota. Any file I can see with the resource quota, we have limit range resource quota.ml. Okay, let me copy this. I'll say resource quota.yaml. Let's update this. Okay, so resource quota So kind equal to the resource quota API version v1. Name of the resource quota is, let's say, my R. I means I can specify anything. Let's say my RQ, and namespace is dev1 namespace. And if I say hard limit that pod 2, so resource quota से क्या होता है? One is like managing the resources, another is like how much number of resources you are allowed to create within that. Okay, so that is the meaning of this resource quota. Let's say if I just save it, okay, I'll not apply it right now. As of now, we don't have any resource quota allocated to this dev1 namespace. Okay, and if you create a deployment, let's say kubectl create deployment, let's say my day from image nginx with replicas equal to, let's say, 5. Okay, till now I have created a deployment with YAML file, but this is also one of the way to create a deployment via CLI. I should get 5 ports in this dev1 namespace now. Okay, my bad. Kubectl delete deployment. This deployment got created in the default namespace. That's where I was not able to see anything. I want it to be into the dev1 namespace. Okay, so if I create a deployment in the dev1 namespace, pods will get created in the dev1 namespace, and it should be up and running by this time. So now I got 5 pods up and running over here. So I can create as many number of pods as I want in this namespace, because there is no restrictions as of now, because no resource quota is assigned to this namespace. So let's go ahead and delete this deployment, and let's create this resource quota first. This resource quota is going to get created and attached to this namespace, and it's a hard limit equal to 2, means there can be maximum 2 pods. It cannot be go beyond 2 pods. Okay, if I describe this now, you can see earlier there was saying no resource quota, but as we have provided a resource quota over here, uh, name of the resource quota is myrq, so maximum limit is 2. So let's go ahead and try to create a pod. Run p1 hyphen hyphen image nginx. I'm going to create in the dev1 namespace. So one pod is means maximum 2 pods as possible. Okay, so this got created. Let's create one more pod. 2 pod got created. Let's create third pod, and third pod is saying error from server forbidden. Like, you cannot create the third pod because we have set limit equal to 2, hard limit equal to 2, and already there are 2 pods p1 p2, so that's why p3 is not possible. If I just describe the namespace now, describe namespace dev1 namespace. So total we already have 2 pods, and the limit is also reached now, so that's where third pod is not possible. If I delete any pod, then definitely I can create one more pod. If I just deleted this and show you this description now, so now I have only one pod, that's why used equal to 1 and hard limit is equal to 2. So one more pod is okay now. So maximum 2 pods are allowed. Similarly, the way we have said maximum 2 pods are allowed, in the same way I can say maximum 2 resources, 2 services, 2 deployments, 2 replica set. What all the resources all the resources also possible to restrict, like, but pods is very easy to understand. That's where I started with the pod. Okay, so this is a limitation, means that we can attach to this namespace. Okay, I hope this you understood with practical now. Second thing about this resource, sorry, about this namespace, we have seen this maximum 5 pods are allowed. So this scenario we have just seen. Let's talk about providing resources to this namespace. Okay, let's go ahead and let's create a pod with this information. I'll explain what exactly this is. Okay, so we are going to create a pod over here, and I'm going to create it, let's say name of the pod as, let's say, p1 again, and I want this pod to be created under the dev1 namespace, and this is going to get created from nginx image, and we are trying to assign the resources to this. In the section of auto scaling we have already saw this, but let me explain it one more time. Let's say if you skip this part, if you don't write this part, in that case this pod will be able to access the full CPU or full memory which is available on this worker node. But that should not be an ideal case. We should always provide resources so that single pod should not occupy 100% of the resources. So that's where whenever a pod will get created with this content, whenever a pod will get created, it will have 100 millicore at initial stage, and if there is increase in the load, if this pod is getting some extra request, then definitely it requires some extra CPU to handle that extra request. So maximum it can go up to 200 millicore. Okay, let's say it reached to 200 millicore and again there is some extra request, then definitely this pod will not be able to handle it, because I'm setting the limit over here that maximum it can go up to 200 millicore. Okay, same goes for the memory. Memory stands for RAM over here, random access memory. Okay, read only memory. Now, sorry, random access memory, RAM, yeah, okay. ROM is for read only memory. So this we will just talk about CPU right now, because the concept will remain same for RAM as well. So that's why we have to provide resources. Let's say we don't provide any resource quota now. Okay, let's talk about resource quota. Let's say we don't provide any resource quota according to these resources. In that case, this pod can go ahead and request for anything and limit for anything. Means, let's say if I provide request for this, if I provide request for limit for this, I can provide whatever the number is possible over here, and the pod will get created definitely. But if I want to restrict it, that this request should not be more than 200, limit should not be more than 300. So likewise, so that I will be able to manage that resources over that namespace carefully. Okay, so that is also possible over here. Let's try it out and I'll show you how things will work. I think there is pod within this. Let me delete that pod first. And let's create a resource quota. Let's delete resource quota. Okay, the previous resource quota I'll delete and I'll create a new one. Okay, let's delete the resource quota and add the new content in that file. Okay, so again we are trying to create resource quota, but this is based on the resources, not on the number of resources. So request, we have seen the request and the limits. Okay, request.cpu and request.memory, limit.cpu, limit.memory. From where this is coming, I'll show you. This is the request, this is the pod. So within the pod you can see request.cpu, request.memory, limits.cpu, limits.memory. This is the thing which is mentioned over here, and we are specifying the hard limit. We are specifying this hard limit in this way that within this namespace, dev1 namespace, maximum request.cpu allowed is 500. Okay, so let's say if I say my pod 1 is using request.cpu 100, so maximum I can go ahead and create 5 pods, because if request.cpu for one pod is 100, then for 5 pods it will be 500, and that is what I have set within this resource quota. And once the request.cpu reach to the hard limit of the resource quota, then now onwards the pod will not get created. So this is how I can specify the maximum, this is how I can specify the limits for the resources. Okay, let me show you practically. So let me say, let this is the request.cpu, let's say 200, and this is, let's say, limit, let it be as it is, and I'll just say namespace over here, dev1 namespace, get pod. I think nothing should be there. Describe namespace, dev1 namespace, nothing is there. Let's apply it. Resource quota got created, and if I just show you now, this resource quota is like, as of now there is no pod within it, so that's why it's like, as of now nothing is used within this namespace. And these are the hard limits that we have set: request cpu, request memory. Okay, and within this pod file, if you see, I'm making use of the 100 request.cpu 100. Okay, just focus on this as of now, and the pod p1 will get created in this dev1 namespace. Let's create this pod. As soon as I create the pod, and describe it, you can see out of that, just focus on this. Okay, maybe once you understand one attribute, rest you will definitely understand. So request.cpu, I have used 100 millicore. Okay, because my pod p1 is using 100 millicore. Let's say if I create one more pod with the name, pod name should be different over here. Okay, I'll keep rest of the thing as it is. So the request.cpu will be 200, because there are two pods now. If you describe it, so now it's 200 because I have created two pods. If I try to create three pod, it will not be possible, because now the threshold got match, means it cannot go to 300, because maximum allowed is 200, which I mentioned under the resource quota. If I try to create one more, I'll get some error, like uh, it's not, means whatever you can see, that is the same thing which I make you understand over here. Okay, p3 is forbidden, exceeded the resource quota. Requested, we have requested for the 100 millicore cpu, and it's already used like 200 millicore requested cpu already. So it's all about like we don't have any extra I meant to say the limit is set, so we cannot go beyond this limit. If you still want to go beyond this limit, you have to change the this to 300 or 400, and then only you will be able to go. Same goes for this. Memory is also got reached to the limit. So if any one of the parameter is not able to means I want to say, let's say memory sahi hai, and these limits are also okay, let's say, but this request dot cpu gets fulfilled, even though uh, pod will not get created. It's not like if all four are not matching. Over here this got exceeded, definitely will not be able to create the pod. So this is what I was talking about, like within this namespace a person cannot go and beyond the allocated resources. And last part we have talked about is like restriction of access, that we will see sometime, not today. So whatever topic, that's all from mine actually. So whatever topic that we have seen till now within this namespace and how it works, understood this topic. Okay, got it. I hope things are pretty much clear. If any doubt, definitely let me know. Happy to help you. Thank you so much for joining. See you on Monday. Take care. Bye bye.